to when their parents conceived them and then work with the parents to try to straighten out whether emotional bullshit is going to make them a shitty parent so that they can deliver a kid that's better functioning in society.
Okay, so
but when that kid is all fucked up, you got to deal with them. Somebody made a fucked up kid, let that fucked up kid get loose, and he's whipping a Frisbee around near your 2-year-old baby.
Okay, but this is why things are getting better. This is the sign, because people want to be better parents. And all, like, pathological behavior, why do people grow up to be violent criminals?
Right.
It's usually because they were abused as children in some way.
You're right, yeah.
It's or emotional abuse or physical abuse, but people aren't naturally violent. You know, people are, the natural state is to want to cooperate with fellow human beings. At least that's what we're evolving towards. And so think about it, like right now, compared to the state of nature 200,000 years ago, you know, everybody had to work 16 hours a day, hunting and gathering to survive, right? And now the average American can work from when they're 22 to 65, 8 hours a day with weekends and vacation time, and support a whole family for their lifetime on that. And if anything, it would be a lot less than that without the central banking system that we have today, without the systems of government exploitation robbing that exponential growth, or what should be exponential growth in quality of life. And it's still exponential, but not nearly as much as it should be. And, you know, what we're coming to, like, how are you going to convince people that you need a welfare state when you can work for 1 year and save enough money to live at the quality of life that we enjoy today for the rest of your life? That's and to me, that's what makes it such an exciting time to be alive. And you just look at how much less violence there is. And this is a really beautiful thing. You can look at government and be pissed off all you want. And this is where I've come to now as a Zen libertarian, is being able to see this bigger picture, and that the actual average amount of violence that an individual is subject to is at an all-time historic low, for as long as we've been able to track it. That's part of that evolution. This is the natural development of life from single-celled organisms, from, you know, little molecules bouncing around in the primordial soup together. The essence of life is cooperation, is pooling of resources, you know, of coming together, of energy coming into harmony. And that's what we're going through. And we're seeing like this process of 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, and we're in the middle of a big step backwards right now that really is centered around the institutionalization of the Federal Reserve and the modern systems of government going back about 100 years. And within that time, you know, we've had steps forward, gay rights movement, the women's rights movement, the civil rights movement, not in how they were institutionalized in government, but what they represented for society were steps forward. But we're coming to this major step forward now when we get past this entire paradigm of statism, and it's a beautiful thing to see that as we're able to raise our children nonviolently, as we're able to be better parents because we have better prosperity and better just the leisure time, the ability to do things that the cavemen couldn't do, and raise children that are emotionally well balanced and don't engage in this pathological behavior that is government.
I agree that it seems that if you measure our time on Earth in comparison to the Greeks or the Romans or anybody who lived in any sort of an ancient civilization, like, yeah, no one's ever had it as good as we have it. As far as the less violence, the more health, the more pleasure. It's like the people being nice to each other, people understanding the impact of being nice to each other, actually understanding what that's all about now. That's never happened before. The way it's happening now.
Well, Americans are fat because we're like citizens of the empire.
Yeah, but if you look at the rest of the world, though, if you look at it, especially the impact on some of the things that are necessary in order to produce the amount of power that's necessary to run this crazy sort of peaceful, easygoing country that we think of as America, where you drive around, there's really not that much crime. You drive around, there's really not that much violence. Well, how are you? Were you driving around on gas? Where's that gas coming from, dude? That gas is coming from a place that's getting bombed from the sky with missiles,
and that's where we pay
apartment
the inflation
buildings
tax.
are blowing up. I mean, people are dying left and right. So is it possible to have all that shit without all the bad shit? Is it even possible to have in this day and age, or is this like an overclocked society? Is the only way to have a society like America possible is if they're at the very top of the food chain doing all sorts of fucked up unethical shit? Or is it possible to have the control over the resources that we have and still be ethical? Is it possible to run a society like this and not do anything fucked up?
I think even the way that you're asking that question is reinforcing the
idea of a country
paradigm, right?
And you think that's going to eventually completely go away?
Well, no, yes, but it represents the framework from which you're coming from. This represents that statist paradigm of how do we have an identity, or how do we have a society when you're using government in a way that doesn't clearly define it, and when you really break it down, the only clear way to define government is a group of people with an arbitrary, geographically based monopoly on the initiation of force. That's what sets them apart. Like, if I go in and say, put a gun to your head and say, give me your wallet, I can't, that's wrong.
Or you can't be a gang member and go to war with another gang and say, look, these guys aren't murderers. They're in my army. I made them go to war with the bad gang.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, generally police, and it's what's sick is that we have to extricate. We have to pull out these legitimate functions of government in order to get rid of it. Like, it's really tricky with the police state, and it's an issue I'm really passionate about. One of the things that kind of put me on the map was the Jefferson Dance Party, when I got picked up and body slammed by a police officer at the Jefferson Memorial for dancing in public. And
what happened?
That's my video that's got over 1 million views.
What happened?
Police state.
Pull that shit up, Brian. Where's Brian?
He's out of here. You can't get it from the sound anyways. But
Brian just vanished.
Police officers do serve a legitimate function. The problem is that they've got a government monopoly on it. They provide for the public safety, but private security is obviously much better. And when you have this monopoly power, they're not accountable to the people. There's always that detachment. And it's the idea of government. You say, do we need government for society? Government is antithetical to society. If society is defined as how people come up with an identity and come together peacefully and cooperatively and engage in commerce and do productive things, then it's like, how do you? It's like saying, how do you live healthy with a giant leech on your back? Is that essential? And it's like, no.
Does government have to be a leech? That's the question. Does government have to be that? Is it possible to have a government where it's just, we have a set of values that we put in place in order to help society run better, and we all take place in it, and we call that government.
It could be not a leech, but it can never, by definition, be moral, and will always then give someone an unjust power that is corrupting.
I got to see this video, man. I'm pissed that Brian is.
Where's Brian? You want me to vamp?
No, don't worry. Brian!
All right. This is Adam Kokesh taking over the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Thank you very much. Dustin is here, my old co-producer from the radio show.
Brian is ridiculous. I'm going to send him a text message, tell him to get back in here. So, explain to me what happened to you. They picked you up and body slammed you?
Well, it's...
No, dude, he wants to see a video, man.
I don't want to see it. No, so it's a bit of a story because it goes back like 3 or 4 years ago. There was a group of 18 people that were just a bunch of libertarian activists that liked Thomas Jefferson. And so they wanted to go dance because he was the dancing president. I didn't find out about this until after the incident. My Facebook wall got just covered with all these Jefferson quotes about how he liked to dance and bust out the fiddle at the White House and stuff like that. But they went and danced at midnight on Thomas Jefferson's birthday, just as a little like flash mob thing, right? And the security guards came and tried to like shoo them out of the memorial, and one of them was dancing out and got arrested. And they were like, what the fuck? And so they tried to fight it in court, and like 3 years later, the judge said, like, as if the judge had said, on the grounds of its improper usage or it's a safety threat or it's like, there was a way that they could have legitimately said there's no dancing, but it's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. Anywhere that you're illegally allowed to be, you don't have control over your body, or if you move in a certain way, like that's going to be illegal, So it's kind of absurd on its premise, like most of the things of government, when you really go down to the actual core premise of what it means to be, when you say there should be a law for this or it should be illegal for that. But we decided to go back because the judge said it was not appropriately reverent enough.
Reverent?
Yes. Wow. You had to be reverent of Thomas Jefferson. This is, a public memorial where you've got kids spilling drinks and playing with toys and cars and shit, like all over the place, and you can't dance.
What's the video?
If you go to youtube.com/Adam Kokesh and then search for most viewed.
How do you spell Adam?
Kokesh.
K. What was that?
Kokesh.
Yes. It's kind of a long video. It's 10 minutes. But so we went back and we decided we were going to start dancing. And the cops were waiting for us. So they said, "Who's in charge here?" And we all pointed to Thomas Jefferson, and this, the giant 30-foot statue of him. And this couple that was there just started dancing, and they bumped into one of the cops, and the cop was like pointing to his goons, "You go arrest them." And they're swaying, like hugging, like barely dancing.
Oh God!
And so the rest of us were like, "Well, fuck that, it's on." And I was listening to "You Can Do It" by Ice Cube, and you could barely call what I was doing dancing. But by the end of this, they picked me. The cop picked me up and body slammed me because I was resisting with my hands out like this, had my hands out in front of me, like I'm not violent. And he picked me up and body slammed me, and then kneed me in the ribs and choked me on the ground there. Jesus. And the crazy part is, I was in the Marines. I was on the Marine Corps rugby team. I'm training for MMA right now. But if I didn't know how to fall, like I would have fractured my skull. Like if I had gone limp and flipped back on a marble floor, I would have cracked my skull open. But
yeah, you could have died.
I slapped the ground and I was okay.
Videos.
We did. It's the one top in the middle there. You can watch the whole thing unfold.
Is there somebody that's leading y'all here, or y'all just?
This guy body slammed you?
This is it's this little chubby guy with probably a really small penis.
Give you your warnings.
But
come out here and you demonstrate.
that's the people that are authorized to use violence by government.